Thank you, Tammy. Uh, so yeah, I feel like I'm moderating a spelling bee up here, but um, thank you. I am Jim Hain. I am the arts education manager at Erie Arts and Culture. And as Tammy said, this is a partnership with between Erie Arts and Culture and the Barber National Institute. To just give you some idea of what we've been doing. Um, First of all, our relationship, the Barber National Institute and the Erie Arts and Culture, goes back. I was talking to Dr. Barbara Carey a couple weeks ago, probably 30 years maybe, if not longer. There's still art over there from 20 years ago from residencies that we did. But what we do at Erie Arts and Culture, we are a nonprofit. We are 65 years old, and we actually serve more than just the city of Erie. We serve 6 counties in northwestern Pennsylvania. That's Erie, Crawford, Warren, Venango, Lawrence, and Mercer counties. And I just set up a residency down in Newcastle. I'm very excited about it. Um, but we do that. What we do is we have a roster of about 70 teaching artists of all disciplines: music, dance, theater, visual arts, literary arts, filmmaking, digital arts. And we put them in schools, in libraries, in community organizations, in places like the Barber Center, like Soldiers and Sailors Home, like the Boys and Girls Club, to bring art to people. Because one of the things that we are all about in terms of art is equity. Art is for everyone. And we want to make sure that everyone has that opportunity to learn art, to enjoy art, to have the exposure to art. And so, with that in mind, we've been doing artist residencies at the Barber National Institute, as I said, for probably 25 to 30 years. And we did this school year, since we're going that way, we did 5. We did, this was at the Elizabeth Lee Black School, which is younger children, and then at the day program in Erie and at the day program in Warren. And so some of those teaching artists are here tonight, and we're going to have sort of a discussion about their experiences doing that and experiences teaching to people with special needs. And I'm going to introduce the artists, first of all, the teaching artists that we have here. I'm very excited to have them all here. It's fun because we have a variety of different levels of experience. Some people, this was their first residency. Some people have been doing this for a long time. Some people do this for a living. And so I'll go from my left, from this side to that side. So this is right here. Stage left, stage right. I got it. Uh, this is Jaleesa Williams. Jaleesa is an embroidery specialist, teaching artist, and the owner of Sew Royalty. She has a degree in social work from Mercyhurst University. And Jaleesa is passionate about fostering creativity and skill building through sewing. By offering services that range from custom embroidery to educational workshops for adults and children at local schools that don't have access to sewing machines at home, or home economics classes. The business not only meets practical demand, but also helps preserve and promote an important skill to have, knowing how to sew. And Jaleesa did a sewing and embroidery residency with the adults in the Erie day program at the Barber Center. Next to her is Ann Ellison. Ann has worked at the Barber National Institute in various roles for 35 years. She has also taught kids and clay and adult batik, is it? Batik. I always say that wrong. And I'm in the art museum, at the Erie Art Museum. She has an art education degree and a master's degree in counseling. She currently serves as the behavioral services coordinator at the Elizabeth Lee Black School. Ann has presented regionally and nationally on topics related to autism and developmental disabilities. Next to Ann is Steve Mick. Steve is a local artist. As an artist, he works with the Looking Glass Art Project, which focuses on large-scale public art installations. These have included Union City Gateway Mural Project, which is composed of 3 murals depicting the importance of French Creek to the community. And the mural painted on the Hands building on East 6th and East Avenue called Growth Over Guns, which was painted with students from Erie Center for Arts and Technology. Steve was also part of our Views Festival in 2023, and his mural can be seen at 2334 East Lake Road. Steve, this was his first residency working at the Barber National Institute, and he worked with students at the Elizabeth Lee Black School on a mural, which is in their right outside their cafeteria, and he worked with the students to design and to create this mural, and it's beautiful. There's pictures of it I can show you. Uh, and then finally, we have Kristine Peterson. Kristine is a clinical art therapist at Family Services of Warren County. As a master's level clinician, she provides art therapy services as an alternative therapeutic approach. Art therapy helps address mental health challenges using specific art making interventions. Her education background includes earning a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Studio Art, a Master's of Education in Art Education, and a Master of Arts in Counseling and Art Therapy. Kristine is credentialed as a board certified registered art therapist by the Art Therapy Credentials Board and is a member of the American Art Therapy Association. Kristine has been an artist since she could hold a crayon and has more than 15 years of experience as a teaching artist. Kristine developed a school-based art therapy program providing no-cost services to students, it's grant and donor funded, in the Warren County School District, now in its 4th year. And Kristine did a residency with the adults at the Warren facility where they did a bunch of different projects, which are on display as the students, Jaleesa students art at our gallery over at the cashier's house. So as some of you may have come from there just now, our gallery is open from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Wednesday, and then Thursday and Friday by appointment. Just kind of give us a call, let us know you're coming. And that's going to be there through the end of March. So it's really awesome. We had our opening on gallery night, and then we had a private exhibition for the artists, and they got to come in and see their art on the wall. And there's something really special with when artists see their work in a gallery for the first time. And it was really, really a wonderful experience. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to let each of our panelists kind of talk a little bit about what their experiences were like doing this. And as I said, they've all got different levels of experience. And so why don't we start with Jaleesa? We'll just have you. Yep.
Hello, everyone. So, I've been with Erie Arts and Culture for a couple years now. What I will say is my residency at BNI was the most rewarding. As an autism mom, it was just really nice to go in and teach and learn from individuals with special needs. I just really enjoyed the residency altogether. I went in and well, should I wait until we answer the question?
No, keep going.
Okay. So I went in and I had this agenda. I knew what I wanted to do, but we slowly changed things as we went along because I took time to meet them where they are and just learn from them as well. So it was just, once again, it was just really rewarding and I enjoyed the time.
Anne.
Okay. Hello. Good evening, everyone. My experience at BNI is different than those who have done a residency, but I've been really privileged, I think, to work with these individuals for years and let them really show me and surprise me with their multiple talents that are often very hidden. Um, and I don't know if you all remember, but Frank Fecco was an artist who worked with the BNI for many years, and he really opened the door, I think, to art for people with developmental disabilities and how to help them to create very beautiful things and to bring their gifts really to light. And so I've just been very privileged to be associated with this. And at this point in my career, to kind of join my two loves, art and special needs people, is really it's a great opportunity for me to be here tonight with you. So thank you for your support of the folks that we care about.
Hello. Hi, everyone. My experience at the Barber Center, I found very valuable. I don't know if they learned more or if I learned more. Um, you know, my expectations, I guess, were changing every day. My experience might have been different than other people's because I had the goal of creating a large project at the end of the residency. So I had to figure out a way for all of my students to work together on one thing and to have a finished product at the end of it. And I think my strategy kind of changed every single day. Um, you know, it was a constant learning experience, and I had to adapt it to be on their level. And that was like the most important part, was creating something that they could participate in and feel reward afterwards. Um, so yeah, I really enjoyed it. And I think they did too.
Kristine?
Okay, I was worried if this was already on, so thanks. I'm Kristine, and I'm echoing really what everyone said here about this being such an honor and a privilege to be a part of. Being a part of it equally, really. I feel like we were sharing and growing and partnering together, the student artists and myself. The way that I structured was process over product, because that's how I'm working in the therapeutic space with art. So to me, I knew that they were going to produce artwork, but I didn't have any expectations about what that artwork would look like. Rather, I structured every class session with a different emotion. Let's explore emotions and just see what the individuals would express those emotions like. And so when you go over to the gallery at Erie Arts and Culture, you'll see that they were grouped with the different emotions. So the emotions that we covered, well, first we just listed a whole bunch. I just wanted to see what's our shared emotional vocabulary if we're going to make art about these. And they filled a whole big banner that's still at the Bollinger campus. We went through excitement, fear, sadness, disgust, surprise, anger, joy, gratitude. And then in our last session, we selected works that we felt they wanted to show. And they were really leading everything. And I was just listening and trying to respond and help facilitate what they wanted to share in the show. I do think there was so much joy and humor. And that's kind of like the biggest impression that I had. It's just I wasn't expecting to laugh so much and to have so much fun. And when it came to some of those more uncomfortable emotions, such as fear and sadness, there was definitely resistance. And it was a really interesting space to see, am I just going to avoid this? Am I just going to just make something that's happy, even though I know we're doing this emotion, right? And so it was really um, so special to witness that.
Thank you, everyone. I just wanted to follow up a little bit. Jaleesa and Steve, would you be able to talk about specifically kind of the process of what you did, just sort of like what kind of stuff you did with the individuals that you were working with, Jaleesa?
So we started out with machine embroidery and we worked on different shapes. We stitch out different shapes. So once those shapes were stitched out, we practiced sewing those shapes together by hand. They really, really enjoyed that. And then afterwards, they decided they wanted to work on something that was related to the holiday. So we decided to decorate wreaths. And they just to see the different designs they created using one canvas was just amazing. But they were able to sew different designs on the wreaths.
And those wreaths are over at the at Erie Arts and Culture in the gallery. There's just a wide variety of different styles, and it's just really cool, different materials. Steve.
Um, so my class was set up in two sections. I realized that in order to work with the students, I had to have one-on-one time with each student. So while I was working with one student, I had the rest of the class drawing or coloring or playing with Play-Doh or clay. Every day they had like a different assignment that would kind of keep them busy and give them something to do while I worked with the other students. When I was working one-on-one, our mural is basic shapes and primary and secondary colors. I really wanted to focus on the basics, just so that, they had a starting point. If they were going to learn anything, it was just the basics. And the shapes were traced so that they had an outline to follow, and that made it easy for them to trace a shape. And then we would do 3 colors at a time. The primaries one day and the secondaries the second day. Um, I found that giving the students choices was the easiest way to work with them. Instead of trying to have them answer questions or pull information out of them, I gave them options and I let them pick between, one color or the other, one shape or another shape. And that kind of gave them, the ability to participate and choose and have it be their own without having to for them to work too hard at it. And it made it fun, it made it repetitive, and I think that that was really where they started gaining um, the value in it, was the repetition. They got used to me coming in, and every day we would kind of repeat the same process. And after so long, they started knowing what we were going to do and then looking forward to do. And by the end, I could tell that, their painting was better, their tracing was better, just like our connection got better. And um, so every step of the mural was laid out by them. They got to choose of their each of their shapes and colors, and then they also did the layout. I did it in sections in a way that they kind of just had fun with it, and we kind of made it into a game for the design portion. And I don't think that they realized what they were doing until the very end, which was kind of intentional. Um, Usually when we do projects, we try to pull a big idea out of our group that we're engaging with. So I came up with the big idea, and at the end, they were able to see what it was. And I think that it was very successful.
I don't want to leave you out, Anne. Do you have any projects you wanted to talk about or
I don't really have a specific project, but I do want to say, Steve, he did a great job, and I think that offering choice is so important, but doing it maybe in a more structured way and sort of limiting choices can help our individuals to really be successful. Sometimes the whole choice of a palette is just too much. So if you can have a limited palette that the colors are harmonious and it's going to result in an effective product, then you can help them by kind of limiting those choices and helping them to be successful. I call it, we do it a lot in all of our teaching, building a scaffold that helps them be successful. So, and I think we can do that by breaking things down into their small pieces and offering choice within, a reasonable realm for their ability to make choice.
Great. I have some questions, like sort of to prompt like a little discussion. I'd like to have just a little discussion here. So anybody feel free to chime in. Um, uh, so when you first began working with individuals at the Barber National Institute, what assumptions did you have, and how did your experiences challenge or transform them?
So, kind of like what I said in the beginning, I came in with my agenda. I knew exactly what my lesson plan was going to be, right? Um, I didn't really have like any concrete plans, meaning we are going to do this and then this, but I just had an idea of what we were going to do, if that makes any sense at all. But even with our lesson plan, like I knew we were going to start with embroidery. I knew after embroidery, we were going to go into hand sewing. Even in between those things, each day I learned something new with them. I knew that, okay, because that goes back to your options, what you did with options. I tried to make sure to give them options in every step of the way. So even when I went in with the embroidery, it's like, okay, guys, we're going to break off into groups. And so in our groups, this group, you're going to do circles. This group, you're going to do triangles. This group, you do squares. So they got to decide exactly what group they wanted to work in and exactly what colors they wanted to choose for each one of their shapes. And so we just kind of worked together, worked through it in that process.
I can tell you when I started at the BNI, it's a long time ago now, but I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know how to have a conversation with the ladies. I started in a group home quite a long time ago. And I remember my on-site visit. I knew I wanted to do this work, but I didn't know how to interact. And what I've discovered over the years is really they're just people like us. And you like us, some may love art, some may not like art. Some may want to engage in a certain way, some in another way. And so we have to approach each person as an individual, I think, and with respect. They all have some gift to give the world. And if we can help them discover what that is, that's our role. And as I've said before, it's been a privilege over the years to interact with these people and have relationships with all of these individuals that have crossed my path. And each one is very unique. So I guess that's what was a surprise to me, that there's just such a depth of individual being for our folks, and to help them discover it and us to discover it. It's a great journey.
Similarly, I didn't really have any expectations for them. I was really nervous. I was really scared because I'm this outsider coming into their community organization. I didn't know if they would like what I would propose, if they would like the materials, if they would want to even make art about emotions. So really, I came with some ideas, but I didn't know. And so the first day was really observational for me, just kind of seeing what's happening here. What are their relationships? And they were very warm. I was warmly greeted. But I noticed something, that if you were really connected and in relationship with these individuals, they would playfully tease you. They would roast you. Okay. And so I saw this between the staff and the student artists. And so there were some big wins for me when I had one student artist who thought it was hilarious to pretend to eat and drink the art materials just so I would playfully scold him, and he would laugh. And then there was another individual who wasn't participating in the arts, but he was doing some work near the art supply closet. And so he would joke, "Oh, you're going to live there. I'm going to feed you bread and water." And he would pretend to close the art supply closet. At first, I was really scared. I was like, is he actually going to shut me in here? But then he would offer, he said, "Do you want some help? I can help you carry the art supplies over to the classroom," out of kindness. So yes, individuals, meeting them where they are, but having that equity in the relationship, and me, really wanting so badly to develop that relationship with them as an outsider.
Can I just second that? I think relationship is the key, really, to working with anyone, whether it's a typical student or a special needs student. If you can approach them with respect and really like them and appreciate them, they respond to that. And whatever level their functioning is, they know. They're very aware if you are genuine in your relationship and in wanting a relationship with them. So I think that's always a great beginning.
I think for me, I was a little intimidated at first as well. I didn't know what to expect, and going in, it was a little overwhelming. But I think keeping a sense of humor, being patient, and connecting at a personal level was really the most important way um, to get their attention. And that was like the hardest thing, is keeping attention. Working one-on-one, we kept it short, sweet, but like I could pull those few minutes.
Did your experiences with any of the individuals that you worked with maybe shift or change the way you think about the creative process?
Yeah, I'll answer. So there's many moments, kind of every class that we had that transformed or challenged the way that I thought about the creative process. Um, I really admired the way in which the student artists knew exactly the moment their artwork was complete, like with unfaltering confidence. And I appreciated the way in which they knew and informed me of their strengths and also their limitations with detailed accuracy. They say, this is what I like to do. This is what I can do. This is what I can't do. I mean, they told me what I needed to know and they knew themselves. And I thought about so often, I'm not really sure when art is finished. But there was a female student artist in the group, and she would always finish really quickly. Most of her responses were yes, no, very short. And at first I thought, oh, she does not like me at all. But I learned that she was just being really direct. And she chose to stay for the duration of the class, even though she would finish before all the other students. She knew my work's done, and she just wanted to witness the class and be there, but knew the exact moment when her artwork was done. That was really powerful for me.
You know, one thing that I guess has both surprised me and helped me grow as a person and as an artist is they don't judge their own work. They do their work and they embrace their whatever it is, and they're not worried about, is it good enough? Is somebody going to accept it or not accept it? And for me, you know, that's a lesson we all, I think, need to remember. So that's one of the things that's been surprising and has taught me a lot.
Yeah, one of the things I always hear from adults who are when I say that I work in the arts, they'll say, "Oh, I can't even draw a stick figure." And my next question is, "Are you going to try?" You know, does that mean you're just not even going to try, or are you going to, you know? And when you work with, you see this with children to a certain extent, all children, but especially people with special needs. You know, not only are they going to do it, it's going to be the greatest thing you've ever seen, and they know that. They know that, and it's great. Yeah.
So just bringing the idea up of how they celebrate their individual pieces, it reminds me that we celebrated the small wins. So it wasn't like just these big steps. We celebrated every step of the way. And not only did they celebrate their own pieces, they helped their peers too. Hey, this is great. I really like this. They really encouraged one. So I appreciated that.
For me, most of my students were nonverbal, so that was a real change of pace for me. Not being able to talk to uh, my student one on one made communicating a lot more challenging, but I got good at reading body language and, reading just their emotion that they were putting into it. And I could see that it was bringing students peace, like some of the students that like to run around the whole time. The minute it was their turn to paint, they sat down and they focused, and it was, um, it was amazing to me to see their awareness, even though they weren't expressing it, it was there. And it was a constant learning experience just to just to move forward.
Yeah, good.
Not to keep bringing my personal experience in again, but I am an autism mom. I'm a very proud autism mom. My son will be 7 in a few months, and he is nonverbal. So that's my everyday life, and it's really rewarding to hear how gentle and how you took your time to meet them where they were to create that big project. So I really appreciate
One of the reasons that we're doing this talk, I think, and this is what we've talked about with both our friends, our partners at the Barber National Institute within Erie Arts and Culture, is we want more artists to participate in these programs, and we want to demystify the process a little bit because, as you said, you can be a little apprehensive, a little nervous going in because you don't necessarily know what to expect. And one of the things I think that I kind of want to talk about a little bit is adapting instruction, adapting materials, because you might come in with, as you said, you have nonverbal students, so you have to communicate differently, but you might have students in wheelchairs, you might have students with limited mobility. And just to give you some background, I previously ran a program bringing arts to special needs populations in Youngstown, Ohio. And so I worked with not just visual artists, but dance teachers, music teachers, and having to adapt the materials, having to adapt the lessons, sometimes on the fly, was something that was scary, but it was also kind of a fun challenge, I thought. And I had a teacher one time, we had a student in an art class who had pica. And so he was eating all the art supplies. And so the natural response a lot of people would have would be to say, well, he can't do it. But we said, no, we're not going to do that. And so the teacher actually made edible paints, and then she gave him a tortilla to paint on. And so he would make a painting, a beautiful painting, he'd show it to everybody, and then he'd eat it. And so you have to kind of adapt, right? And so I was interested to hear what kind of adaptations, whether it's materials, whether it's with your normal methods of teaching, that you might have had to experience. Maybe some stories, maybe some just ways that you kind of had to think on your feet.
So some of the ways that I adapted was just prepping the materials. And I rely a lot on like peer-to-peer help. So not only am I, helping individuals that need the help, but if there's someone that may be more advanced, I say, hey, why don't you help your friend? And so I relied on that too. That helped out a lot. Um, but like that was really the main thing, just prepping things and asking a peer to help out. And the staff was amazing.
I think breaking things down into their simplest form. In special education, we call it a task analysis, where you break things down. Even washing your hands can be broken down into, okay, first you touch the faucet, and then you turn the faucet, and then you put your hands underneath. Doing that will, I think, help you as a teacher to help guide kids or adults, your students, step by step through the process, because it can feel overwhelming when the whole task is presented at once. So breaking it down into those small pieces would be my best recommendation for an adaptation.
I agree with Jaleesa. I think prep work was one of the most important parts of the residency. Just making sure that everything was ready for them when they came in, and it was broken down into its simplest form, and just ready to go. I had all my aids, all my colors, all my papers cut, and you know,
Yeah, I think many of our students don't wait well. So that's really good advice.
and the other thing was music. I really had a lot of success using music. Um, I didn't introduce it until about halfway through the residency, just because we were getting to know each other, and I wanted to make sure that we had everything kind of, um, settled before I made it more crazy. But they love the music, um, oldies, Beatles, like anything. It really made the class more fun. you know.
It's really great to be here with all of you, because we are doing the same things, but we didn't know we were doing the same things necessarily. So, my response is the same, really structuring, leaning into, my teaching background super strongly, with the goal of, for the adult student artists I was working with, having the maximum amount of unrestricted creative art making time. But how do we do that? That's introducing the topic, then doing a demonstration. Maybe when I introduced the topic, I did often print off like some examples of other artwork, so they had a visual, hey, this is what we're going to inspire, or what emotion do you think this artwork is showing, and having a small discussion about that to prepare them. And I was really careful to provide a selection of materials, but not just pull the whole art closet open, right? So today we're going to be using tape resist. Today we're going to be using jelly plates. Those were really messy, but really fun. So each time providing them options, but also giving them kind of a direction. And then I think it's just really basic over communicating. Okay, we have 20 minutes to work on this part of the project. I will let you know when we're halfway through. We have 1 minute left. It's the little communication so that now they don't have to manage that time. They can get into a flow state. They can just know that they have that time to make. And then sometimes they wouldn't finish their project. So what do? There's more options. Do you want to work on this next time? Do you want to work on this independently, and just allowing them to choose what happens to that?
You mentioned communication, and I just want to comment on that because I think that's another takeaway point is often we over talk to our individuals, and less is more. The less words that can get to the concept you want in a very concrete way, you'll be more successful. And particularly as artists, we kind of tend to be abstract, right? So, so getting down to that concrete and using very kind of direct choices so that you're not giving 5 sentences when you could say, which one do you want, red or green, is sufficient. Just keep it there and don't go on and on like we sometimes do.
This is an interesting question because I think that one of the things, again, in talking about demystifying this for other artists, what does success look like in this kind of an art making environment? How do you define and celebrate achievement?
Okay. So it just goes back to, and I don't mean to sound repetitive, but meeting them where they are. If they feel like this is good, then that is good, especially if they try. So that is what success means in my grip.
I agree with you 100%. And I think you mentioned process over product. And I believe in that, really for all artists. Are they enjoying interacting with the materials? Do they like the way the paint feels on the paper or that the clay squishes between their fingers? That experiential part is more important than the product. And if we want to help them create a product that they can be proud of, there are certainly things that we can do. We often for the art that we put in art shows and whatnot, we will maybe the child does watercolor and they don't really get to the edges of the paper. And if you just look at the product, it's maybe not all that impressive. But if they do 10 of those and then you cut trapezoids and put them nicely in a frame, wow, you've got a beautiful piece of art. So, but for the individual, focus on that process and their experience and their expressive ability to express themselves and engage with those materials is key.
Yes, I agree completely. Success in terms of art making can only be measured by the student artists themselves. If they're enjoying it, if they liked it, it's a success. And that became and has been the only measure of success for me. How could I determine success for somebody else's artwork?
I want to give some time for questions from the audience, so I have one more question for you. Many artists worry about doing the wrong thing. What advice would you give to someone who's nervous about getting started doing, perhaps teaching with people with special needs?
My same thing. Meet them where they are. Meet them where they are. That's just what it is. They're human beings just like us. We're different in many types of ways. So are they. Meet them where they are and see what their abilities are, highlight those, and go from there.
I would concur. I think relationship is key and take time to value them as a human and communicate that to them. And that's the beginning I think from that you can build all kinds of skills, but don't be scared. They're just people like anybody else. And you may have to adjust your way of communicating a little bit. They're nonverbal, so you have to read them differently. But there's such a great reward in that relationship. It's worth building.
I think it's inevitable that you're going to have to adapt your strategy or your process. So getting started with anything is a good place. You know, interpersonal, just getting to know them as people is a great place to start. I always take a day before we do any work just to sit down and talk with my students, you know, to get to know them, to get to know their interests, what they like, a little bit about them. And I always try to memorize their names. I find that knowing people's names is the first sign of respect, you know, and it may not seem important, but it really is.
Can I just jump in before you? One thing I brought to mind, one of my professors in grad school told me one time, don't be afraid to make a mistake because they'll always give you another chance. And that has been one of the most freeing statements that my whole career, I've held it tight because it lets you just be there with the person. And if you make a mistake, you'll get another chance. Maybe you prompted too much or you directed too much, and next time you want to give them more freedom of choice. Okay, do it that way next time.
Very good. Oh, Steve, thank you for saying that piece about the name because I'm really intentional about doing that too, but it didn't occur to me to share that here. So absolutely knowing their names, addressing them by their names so that you can talk and what are we going to do? Hey, you person over there, right? That's going to really change the ability to build a good working relationship together. And I was worried about messing up, but to be clear, the student artists were not worried about doing the wrong thing. And I think we can learn from that. I think the wrong thing is thinking there is a wrong thing. There's so many more right ways to show up and create art together than there are wrong ways.
Okay, well, I think we are just about out of time. Thank you for coming here. Thank you to our panel. We really appreciate you coming and sharing. And thank you to the Barber National Institute. Thank you to the Erie Art Museum. And if you'd like more information about what we do, visit our websites, the Erie Arts and Culture, the Barber National Institute, the Erie Art Museum. Thank you, everybody.